With Cupra, the name has always had an athletic association. The designs look incredible inside and out, but do they follow through on their heritage? The Born has around 419 kilometers of range and decent rapid charging capabilities. This power 58 kilowatt hour model is able to cover around 419 kilometers on a single charge, although this is dependent on which trim you choose. It comes with 19-inch Typhoon wheels, and the more kit you add, the heavier it gets, and it's not too light on its feet at over 2,280 kilograms. Charging speed is now as important a factor as range. The Born with 77 kilowatt hour battery maxes out at 135 kilowatts, so despite the bigger battery, charging from 5 to 80% takes half an hour longer. A standard home wall box at 7.4 kilowatts will take around 12 hours to charge the battery. If you want to make the juice last a little longer, don't forget that factors such as driving style, type of roads, temperatures, etc. will all affect the overall range. Also weight, and this model again comes in at over 2 tons. For a 5-door hatchback, this definitely affects the handling and dynamics too. The main difference between the 58 kilowatt hour or 77 kilowatt hour batteries is basically the amount of predicted range that you can get. In order to increase efficiency, you can either huff out all your passengers or you can use the 2 modes for regenerative braking, the strongest of which provides a decent amount of stopping power when you lift off the throttle, but you can't rely on it for one pedal driving if that's your thing. With its lower centre of gravity, it sits down tight in corners and feels pretty settled through switchbacks. Adjust the driving modes and you'll notice the steering gets heavier but firmer. Bigger brakes and an increased feedback will be welcome if the Born is to claim a title such as a true hot hatch. Acceleration off the line is typically lively for an EV, which helps to make the Born quite fun around town, while it's pretty responsive at higher motorway speeds too. Providing an increased range and rattling off the 0 to 100 km an hour of 7 seconds, you get all models with 310 Newton meters of torque. Road and wind noise is reasonably damped in the cabin, and it leaves you feel more relaxed and refreshed after longer journeys. Visibility around the Born is good, but the large A-pillars can cause some obstruction at junctions. Dashboard design is all angles and at times can be knocked off of accidentally, maybe by your knee while coming in to and going from the car. Luckily for your knees, elsewhere around the cabin are plenty of soft touch materials, and if you spec it up to the optional Dynamica bucket seats, they are far more comfortable when it comes to support. levels of standard equipment for the Bourne are decent, with adaptive cruise control, front and rear parking sensors, LED headlights, automatic wipers and rear view cameras as standard. Next trim level up comes with an AR head-up display, heated front seats and heated steering wheel. Finally, the top spec trim comes with 12-way electrically adjustable dynamic bucket seats, massage function, and it's something which seems to be quite popular with manufacturers recently, especially the French, but je ne sais quoi. While the design of the infotainment and features such as climate control have been created with a reduction of button pushes in mind, it ends up being less user-friendly. For example, the dual function electric window switches use a haptic toggle to switch between front and rear windows, but they usually require more pushes than necessary to operate. Also, the touch-sensitive sliders for the cabin temperature and volume are not the easiest to use, and they don't light up for visual enhancement. It is a 12-inch infotainment screen. It's got an integrated sat-nav, which is very handy when you run out of mobile phone coverage. You also get a digital cockpit display, you get wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay connectivity. You can get wireless charging pad, but it didn't work properly when we kept our phone's protective case on, which hasn't been an issue encountered with other wireless pads in recent press cars. The only place that loses out on space really is the glove box due to the placement of the fuse box. The rest of the cabin has a decent amount of storage and the usual duo of cup holders, large door bins and a big central cubby. Passenger space is good, and this is due to the flat floor and that extra bit of space under the front seats, giving rear passengers that ounce or two of extra comfort. And you also lose out on the extra storage space that other models find under the bonnet. The boot does, however, have 385 litres of space, and when you fold the Cupra's rear seats, it gives you an extra 1,267 litres of space in total. However, the seats don't fold completely flat, and the false boot floor that helps mitigate this issue is an extra. The Cupra Bourne uses most of VW's ID3 parts, but with a nicer interior, exterior, and it also has sharper handling. It's much more expensive than most of the budget Chinese models that we're seeing, and the interior materials reflect this with their feel and high level of quality. And as for the use of haptic buttons on the dash and the steering wheel, they're not as good as the idea behind them. Please give us our buttons back.